There is a lot of buzz going on right now about America's Next Top Model because Netflix just released a docuseries called Reality Check discussing the show in retrospect. Fun little fact, I actually filmed all of this before the series came out and none of the footage was usable, so here we are again. The good news is I can comment on it briefly because this is not what this video is about, but now that I have the opportunity to, I figured why not, and I have to say I was a bit disappointed. I had really high hopes. I certainly thought there would be more accountability on everyone's part, if I'm being really honest. Obviously, some are more guilty than others, but there was little to no remorse. It was a lot of lip service. Also, my heart absolutely shattered when I learned about Miss J. I love him. I have always loved him. When he ever said, "I used to teach supermodels how to walk, and now I can't even walk." Okay. Tears. On a more positive note, I am really glad the girls got to share their truth from their perspective after all this time. I don't know if it was cathartic for them, but regardless, I am happy they got to share their story on their terms and in their own words. Like I said, this video is not a commentary on the new docuseries. I was more interested in learning about why America's Next Top Model had such a major rise and such an epic drop-off. I experienced it firsthand as a child, but I was so ready to dissect it as an adult. Something critical to understand before we get into the weeds of all this, there's a very specific type of reality television that only existed for a short, volatile window in the 2000s. Now, of course, reality TV by nature does tend to lean more unhinged. We know this even now. But back then, there was this super extra special, not in a good way, wild sauce that just seemed to be poured over all of the Y2K reality shows. And I am saying this as neutrally as possible, but the most unhinged reality shows are the ones that last the longest, whether that is in seasons or within the cultural zeitgeist. There is something grossly human about being entertained by ritual humiliation. We love a good humbling, especially if that humbling is the juicy Tootsie center of a glossy, chaotic, salacious, and voyeuristic Tootsie Pop. Bonus points if it's a competitive reality show. Society turns into that how many licks owl, cracking into the candy after 4 tongue slaps. That is the best way to present how America reacted to America's Next Top Model when it premiered on the dearly departed United Paramount Network. But before we can discuss anything else, we must talk about the smizing supermodel / hot ice cream enthusiast, Tyra Banks. As if Tyra Banks, arguably the most successful, well-known model of all time, needs any introduction. But just in case, background is, super important here. Before America's Next Top Model, Tyra Banks was already a force in fashion and pop culture. She was very recognized and dipped her toe in every pond. The most notable pond, of course, the biggest pond, is modeling. She built a major modeling career in the 90s, a time that had very clear and apparent barriers. Credit where credit is absolutely due. Tyra blew through any roadblocks in her career and paved the way for countless models to follow in her footsteps. She became the first Black woman to land covers like GQ, the swimsuit edition of Sports Illustrated, and she was the first Black woman featured in a Victoria's Secret catalog. Victoria's Secret was where Tyra became an icon. She launched her career into the stratosphere with those wings on her back. Look at the strut, the glam, the body, the face card. For femmes my age, she was the most beautiful woman ever. We all wanted to be her, for better or worse. Beauty standards of the 90s and 2000s is another topic entirely. But Tyra was everything and everywhere all at once. She appeared with Victoria's Secret extensively, appearing on major runways and editorial campaigns. It seems like it all happened very fast. One blink and she was in a Michael Jackson music video. Another blink and she was on Fresh Prince. Blink again and she was starring in movies like Life Size and Coyote Ugly. Tyra was a household name, and I mean that quite literally. Everyone knew her. Parents, kids, the elders, dog, the newborn baby still attached to the umbilical cord. That level of visibility mattered when America's Next Top Model premiered in 2003. Tyra was a relevant and bankable nucleus of the show, and if I may toot my own horn, bankable is an excellent segue into Tyra's role on the show. In 2003, alongside America's Next Top Model, she launched Bankable Productions. This meant she was not only the face of the show, but she also took on a major role behind the scenes. Top Model was her baby, and she had been cooking it up for quite some time. Tyra shared that the idea for America's Next Top Model, or at least the bones of it, formed years before it started coming together officially. She started thinking seriously about producing a television show that explained the modeling industry from inside the belly of the beast. In interviews, she described wanting a show that reflected the realities she experienced as a working model, while also giving aspiring models a pathway into an industry that was very closed off. She eventually got serious and developed the concept with an established reality TV producer, Ken Mock. He had specific experience in structured competition and documentary-style formats. Needless to say, he was a fantastic asset. He knew how to bring the drama. He was an executive producer on Making the Band, okay? That says it all.
Puffy just told us to go to the store in Brooklyn and bring him back a cheesecake and walk.
Tyra's star power, industry cred, as well as the idea itself, combined with Ken's reality TV experience and knowledge, was a recipe for success. They brought the idea to UPN after being rejected by pretty much everybody else. UPN was a relatively small network still trying to find its identity. They had some great content, but what they didn't have was a juicy reality show that could help them compete with the major networks. The big four, NBC, Fox, ABC, and CBS, all had very successful reality competition shows. Big Brother, Survivor, American Idol, Fear Factor, all of those equaled ka-ching ka-ching for their networks. They were money-making machines. So when America's Next Top Model was presented to UPN, they ate that shit up. You may be thinking to yourself, of course, picking up a new hot reality show was a no-brainer for UPN. But how was this beneficial for the ANTM gang? Well, UPN offered two very valuable things, actually. Number one being a quick green light. Number two, and most importantly, was they offered significant creative autonomy. Ken Mock said the network understood it right away. I don't know if that's like copium, because I've also read that no other network wanted this show, so it was kind of like this or nothing. But from everything I've gathered, UPN seemed to trust Ken and Tyra with their creative vision. Now, that is not to say that things were perfect or that UPN is a saintly network, far from it. They constantly fought Ken and Tyra over diversity concerns, obviously Ken and Tyra being on the pro-diversity side, but ultimately they had a lot of creative autonomy. The show was greenlit and it was time to bring everything together. Most importantly, the judging panel that would join Tyra. And this panel was critical to the show's success. The Cycle 1 panel had Tyra, of course, Bo Quillian, Kimora Lee Simmons, who I just love, by the way. That one clip of her sort of freaking out is so me.
Having a really bad day. I'm trying to diet. I can't find a proper pill. The granola's not cutting it. I'm hungry. I don't know what to eat. I'm irritated. I would be just much happier fat. I feel very Anna Nicole Smith right now. Rest in peace, her beautiful soul. She likes pink like I like pink. But I'm just not having a good day. I'm hot. Honestly, probably because I don't eat. I was on my period last week. I'm just a little flustered, okay? I'm glad you're so calm today. Your office smells nice. You must have got some last night.
Finally, there was the notorious Janice Dickinson, who thinks that you and your 25-pound toddler are fatty McFattersons. Did I have to Google the weight of a toddler just to make that joke? I sure did. Much of Janice's critique and behavior aged like milk, to say the very least.
Oh, she's 26? That's a little old.
You look like you belong in a cornfield, like scaring crows away.
Let's just call it as it is. Robin, first of all, is too old to be starting model.
She's huge. She's not going to be a top model. They look about 2 months pregnant there. The car looks better than she does. If the body could just slim down 150 pounds, that would be good.
Then she'd be 30 pounds.
That would be better. All fat. The entire room is fat. I'm fat. You're all fat. This looks like she escaped from a mental institution. This is the worst photograph I've ever seen. You look deranged. Your arms look amputated. Your legs look amputated. And it looks like you have a penis. I'm sorry.
Many people found Janice entertaining, and I must stress that I am saying entertaining very neutrally. Being entertained by her doesn't necessarily mean the viewers liked or agreed with what she did. It was more so entertaining in the same way that watching a batty woman shout profanity at the sky from the top of Looney Tune Mountain is entertaining. It was like watching a car wreck. We as a TV watching society in the 2000s were wretched, rotten sadists. Tyra and the whole ANTM crew were well aware that this was the climate, and it without a doubt influenced the entire show. At its core, America's Next Top Model followed a simple, repeatable blueprint. Each episode ran on a tight cycle. A challenge to test personality or skill, a themed photo shoot meant to simulate the industry, and a judging panel where performance was dissected before someone was sent home. All of it unfolded while the contestants lived in one house, cut off from the outside world and under constant observation. That structure made the show easy to follow from week to week. You didn't need to know anything about modeling to understand the stakes. You just needed to know that someone would succeed, someone would fail, and everyone had to live together in the meantime. But before any of that came the casting episodes. Before they moved into the house, the show followed dozens of hopefuls through auditions, interviews, and early eliminations. Once all of that was complete, then the final group was chosen. These episodes were chaotic in the best way. The editing was often rough and very obviously spliced and Frankenstein together.
I don't know, I just don't think this is great for me. I don't want to do it. I want to go home. I can't take the pressure of it.
But don't you think any job interview...
The goal was to highlight the exact personalities production wanted viewers to see. Subtle it was not, but it worked. Casting episodes had already proven successful on other reality competitions. In my opinion, casting/auditions are some of the most entertaining installments of reality competitions. For America's Next Top Model, they were an emotional sampler platter. Funny, heartfelt, dramatic, sometimes all within a 5-minute window. Production had a wide open playground to shape tone, introduce archetypes, and throw viewers straight onto the emotional roller coaster before the actual competition even began. The casting episodes also created stakes immediately and made viewers feel like they were discovering talent alongside of the judges. The viewers could decide right away who annoyed them, who they were rooting for, who was the strongest talent, who was the weakest. Sometimes early cut contestants from previous cycles would return in a later cycle already positioned as underdogs or fan favorites, which only deepened that sense of investment. Bottom line is that the casting episodes hooked the audience early and kept them invested enough to keep watching. Reality TV casting has always been strange. Producers over anything else are looking for people that make compelling TV. According to Business Insider, contestants allegedly went through psych evals, which is common for reality TV, liability and all. But they also went through personality tests and very detailed questionnaires about their personal history. Really, really intimate stuff. And some contestants alleged the information was used against them to manipulate emotions, which is not surprising, unfortunately. Business Insider also reported once the lineup was set, each contestant was assigned a brand for the season. Some of those brands were the party girl, the overachiever, the awkward underdog. Producers would then go on to build episodes, pulling footage that reinforced those narratives. Once the contestants were chosen, they were moved into that shared house I mentioned, and this is where the show started cooking. This setup is one of reality TV's oldest and most reliable tactics. Everyone lived together in the same space with no internet, no cell phones, and almost no contact with the outside world, aside from occasional supervised phone calls. Cameras were rolling almost 24 hours a day, and at the very rare times the cameras were not rolling on contestants, they were kept on ice, meaning they could not talk and sometimes sat for hours in silence with no option to doom scroll Reddit. At home, they were only fully off camera while using the bathroom, and that had to be alone, and when the contestants were sleeping, of which they got very little, by the way. Not ideal when a typical episode could take several days to film, with hair, makeup, photo shoots, and judging panels stretching late into the night. Some contestants recalled filming days that ran well past midnight and resumed just a few hours later. By the time America's Next Top Model adopted the House of Hell format, networks already knew that controlled environments were fertile ground for unscripted drama. The logic was simple: isolate people and remove their routine so that producers could rely on real reactions rather than scripted ones, which does make it feel more authentic. But at what cost? The show controlled the schedule, the information, and the daily structure, which kept contestants focused almost entirely on the competition. Their world shrank to whatever happened inside that house and on set. For viewers, the house provided continuity. The show was now more than a competition for us. We were watching these people exist in close quarters, at their most stressed and vulnerable. That created parasocial relationships and made the show feel like an ongoing story instead of a series of isolated episodes. From a purely entertainment standpoint, this all delivered exactly what reality TV thrives on. Confessionals fueled by cabin fever, whispered shit-talking, and arguments over granola.
Hey, that was nice. Who did that? Who got first dibs on my stuff? And she's like, tell me you're gonna pay for Nicole's drinks. I was like, what? Hello, hi. I think you should mind your business. You can trust me.
If you think I took anything of yours, I didn't touch anything.
I don't believe you.
I have no idea who stole these granola bars she speaks of.
What do you want me to do now?
I want you to pay for it.
I'm not. So now, what do we do?
Why would you do that? You're just kind of a mean person.
I don't like Nicole. I don't believe her story. If I have to hear one more word about that Red Bull, she'll be wearing it tonight.
As I said earlier, these young women did a series of challenges and photo shoots. I'm going to focus just on cycle 1 here because I started going off the chronological rails. The ideas for the shoots and challenges were interesting because they seemed just wild enough to acknowledge, wow, this is crazy, but not too crazy where we question, would this actually happen in the modeling world? Of course it would. Of course it was realistic. This was Tyra's show. This woman had me believing that the things that they were doing on this show were really happening out there in the modeling world. It wasn't until I saw These models get doused in olive oil and thrown in this jumbo bowl with jumbo vegetables for a Greek salad themed photo shoot. Yeah, it took me that long. Even now I'm second guessing myself, like, well, maybe, I'm sure, that's a thing for models out there somewhere. Crazy, just crazy. This woman still has me brainwashed. I haven't even talked about the makeovers yet. The notorious tie-overs. They were actually pretty tame that first cycle. They did not reach their full form yet. It was mostly just some trims and nice blowouts. I think the craziest thing was, didn't Robin get like lighter hair and a longer weave? It really wasn't anything in comparison to later cycles. But watching it, you see that this is a big deal to the contestants. So that's what it felt like to us, the viewers. The makeovers became a significant part of the show, a huge part of the top model blueprint. Viewers loved those tie-over makeover episodes. Every cycle, I swear, it went more and more off the rails. Fancy blowouts in cycle 1 walked so that the ramen noodle D. Snyder weave could run in cycle 16, and so the beard weave could fly in cycle 21. Face framing layers and peekaboo highlights were just the building blocks for this beauty buffoonery. This whole show was buffoonery from the very beginning, and I say that with a gleam in my eye, okay? This was the good kind of crazy. The madness was always in the recipe. The proof is there in the very first episode. These gals got bikini waxes on air. Obviously nothing was showing, but still, it was pretty crazy even for the Wild West outlaw days of Y2K reality television. The contestants then had a photo shoot at the top of a skyscraper when it was colder than a witch's titty outside. And it was gripping television immediately. These girls were like shaken under blankets. The first episode actually had some religious tension going on. Even now, that is uncomfortable to watch because it is so personal. But here we were, cycle 1, zoomed all the way in.
Excuse me. That's what I'm talking about. Excellent. I'm talking and you singing in the middle of me talking. Excellent. That really mixed me up. I really did not know how to respond to that. That was like, whoa.
The final 5 contestants got a surprise trip to Paris. That was so exciting. That also became a super big part of the show. I felt like I was living vicariously through these contestants when they got to travel internationally. It was awesome. Cycle 1 was definitely far from perfect, but it fully assembled the backbone of the show. From the tie-overs to the challenges to the judging panel where the girls got called fat, dead-eyed, no talent having hacks with the personality and style of a potato on a bad day, and on a good day would receive a backhanded compliment of sorts. They'd say something like, wow, you really are an odd beauty, aren't you? With your wall eyes and a forehead you can land a plane on, and, the whole ugly duckling vibe you've got going on. It's really giving Paris Fashion Week. These poor girls, who were between the ages of 18 and 23, by the way, freshly blossomed young women, just having their self-esteem thrown in a wood chipper. Getting back to the backbone, the blueprint, even the way Tyra calls out the safe contestants every week was obviously dramatic on purpose, but ritualistic on purpose as well. She says the same thing every episode, every cycle, in the exact same cadence. It really created a rhythm, and I loved that shit. It also made the moments that went offbeat feel even crazier. I am theorizing here, and I may be going a bit too deep, but caution, disclaimer, spoiler even, I am going to be discussing how I believe 9/11 contributed to the success of America's Next Top Model. Hang on, hear me out, please. Don't look at me like that.
No. Well, you don't want to hear about 9/11.
I obviously don't think it was the key factor in why it had so much success. If you hear the plows outside, sorry, there is a blizzard going on in New England.
Jump out a window, an icicle could have fallen off your roof, gone the other way, you jump into the snowbank, and you figure out what happened after that. But we're asking people to act responsibly in the city of Boston. This isn't Loon Mountain.
Really do feel like it played a part. Hear me out, okay? I'm gonna attempt to back this up. According to media scholar Stacey Takacs, I'm going to put the name here, discusses in her book, Terrorism TV, Popular Entertainment in Post 9/11, how American television became a sort of emotional processing space for audiences trying to make sense of a suddenly very unstable world. She discusses so much in this book, but what is specific and relevant to America's Next Top Model is how TV at the time was often organized into these neat narratives that were easy to follow and easy to come back to week after week. In that environment, structured programming with clear rules and predictable narratives became especially appealing because it offered viewers a sense of order. ANTM was perfect TV because it didn't address the trauma head on. It worked as a much needed escape from the atrocities while simultaneously providing familiarity, routine, and a contained emotional arc that reset every week. A 2004 media psychology study also found reality TV viewers were especially drawn to programming that offered clear stakes, judgment, and weekly resolution, satisfying the need for validation, security, and engagement. I didn't know what shit would land on my doorstep on any given day, but I knew that at about roughly 8:52, or was it 9:52? I don't remember exactly. On Wednesday nights, I could click on UPN and Tyra would be peeling off contestants' photos from that week. And I knew it would sound the same as last week and the week before that, and that it would sound the same next week. It was safe, and it was a comfort I could rely on when I couldn't really rely on much. This made myself and many others a loyal audience, and loyalty in the world of show business means ka-ching, ka-ching. The premiere was strong with 2.9 million viewers, and by the finale, viewership ballooned to 4.5 million. Hi, hello, word of mouth. That upward trajectory matters even more than the raw numbers because it proved the show was not only maintaining their audience week to week, but the viewers were also telling their friends to tune in, and they were doing it. The early growth translated to long-term franchise reliability almost immediately. UPN said, "Thank you, may I have another and another." Not only did they renew America's Next Top Model, but they also moved the show to a twice-a-year production. Did I name this chapter something kind of irrelevant simply because it references one of my favorite moments of the show? That is absolutely correct.
Hi, I'm Tiffany here with ANTM TV. It's Fashion Week in Paris. Can you say magnetic?
Just keep going.
Charismatic, solid gold.
I consider cycles 2 through 6 the rise of ANTM. Even though Cycle 2 had the highest average rating of the entire series, with a beastly 6.1 million average viewers. But these cycles were still mega successful, and the budget reflected this. The international trips got crazier, prizes for the winners were upgraded, and the star power definitely increased. Also, Twiggy replaced Janice on the judging panel, starting Cycle 5. There were actually several changes to the judging panel. I might be getting the exact details mixed up here, but I believe Bo Quillian replaced Eric Nicholson, but then Bo Quillian was replaced by Nigel Barker. Kimora Lee Simmons was replaced by Nole Marin, and he was replaced by Miss J. In my opinion, this was the best judging panel, the final one they landed on during this era. Miss J, Twiggy, Tyra, and Nigel Barker. Just perfecto. We trusted them, and it felt like they wanted the best for these girls. We believed they were going to do their very best molding a new supermodel. In the mid-2000s, the supermodel, or the idea of the supermodel, was not dead. Modeling was still a glamorous, aspirational career. And the public still didn't know much, if anything, about that world, unless, of course, they watched America's Next Top Model. We were experts. We knew fashion. We knew the subtle but necessary shifts in poses for men and women's magazines. We knew the smize. We knew the difference between commercial and runway looks. Thank you, Tyra, for sharing all of that valuable information with me as a child, just to have me throw up a peace sign in every single selfie as an adult. Tyra Banks became even more of a powerhouse in September 2005, when she stepped into daytime television with The Tyra Banks Show. And this show was batshit crazy.
Beyonce, when was the last time you bought something in a store? Seance. If you could communicate with anybody that has passed away, who would it be?
So on the count of 3, I want you to all open them together. Are you ready?
Beyonce, what's your favorite type of cheese? Rayonce, when you get older, are you going to dye your hair?
1, 2, 3. Open them.
Clayonce, have you ever voted on American Idol? Slosha Fierce, when was the last time you was a little tipsy? Squasha Fierce, what sport do you like to play? Washa Fierce, do you sing in the shower?
And these Valentines are worth $100!
If I were Ahoy, I know that you like to take vacations on boats.
We're breaking you today! Start the show! Tyra, break!
If I were Tolstoy, can you do a Russian accent?
Your wildest dreams have come true!
By the time America's Next Top Model hit the mid-2000s, Tyra's visibility had doubled, and that extra star power poured right back into the show. I mentioned a little bit ago that UPN moved the show to a semi-annual cycle, and this could have been an absolute disaster, a mistake. The fact that it wasn't proved a few things. Number one, the show was more inexpensive to produce than I would have thought. Number two, the viewers were extremely loyal and reliable. And number three, it was capable of holding audience interest without long breaks. This kept the show constantly in conversation. Not just in America either. By the early to mid-2000s, ANTM was airing in dozens of countries and eventually over 170 regions. In 2005, Top Model got spin-offs in Australia and Britain. The fact that two major markets were falling over themselves to build their own versions of Top Model, while the original series was still in its early success, was a big green flag. Top Model had already proven itself and its staying power, but the international spin-offs really cemented this. And those spin-offs just fed right back into the original series' success. Australia and Britain's first cycles were strong ratings-wise. They followed the same format as the original. They were both renewed very quickly and ultimately proved how profitable Top Model could be as an export. America's Next Top Model was the sun in the Top Model global franchise solar system, not just some niche network show anymore.
However,
this era had some major misses, to put it lightly, including the now notorious Got Milk photo shoot. There was criticism at the time, but it didn't derail the show's momentum the way it likely would today. I mentioned it at the beginning of this video because it is so relevant. Early 2000s reality TV existed in a different cultural climate. The unfortunate reality was ANTM was still pulling strong ratings. The controversy was present, and to be clear, it did matter. Those missteps are part of the show's legacy and part of how we evaluate it now. But alongside of that controversy, during this same stretch, there was a sort of magic to the show. Yes, the format was fresh and the show felt very creative most of the time, but I believe most of that magic came from the casting. Cycles 2 through 6 had some of the most iconic contestants. Takara, Yaya, Eva, my all-time favorite Brie, Lisa, Ferranda, another favorite of mine. Most importantly, we were blessed with the biracial butterfly, Jade.
I'm an exotic biracial butterfly.
During this era, we also got some of the best photo shoots and challenges. There was the church fashion show, the cockroaches, bald Swarovski mannequins, the crumping, tarantulas. The show stayed with that delicious recipe they cooked up for Cycle 1. They just upgraded the quality of ingredients, from table salt to pink Himalayan, from corn syrup to raw wildflower honey. It bumped the show up quite a bit without losing its core identity. America's Next Top Model was doing fantastic, but it was not enough to keep UPN afloat. After years of uneven affiliate coverage and weak ratings from the network overall, CBS and Warner Brothers merged UPN with the WB to form the CW. This was the start of a new era for ANTM, and it is also the start of a new chapter for this video. Everyone was correct in assuming the show would be A-okay after the CW switch. The numbers stayed strong. In fact, there was a boost in viewership from Cycle 6's 4.7 million to Cycle 7's 5.1 million. Top Model became one of the highest rated shows on the CW during its first year. It functioned as a carryover audience anchor and gave the infant network immediate stability. The CW thankfully kept the successful format rolling with a sprinkle of razzle-dazzle, like the new seasonal theme songs from artists like the Pussycat Dolls and Danity Kane. The prizes were changed up again, mainly the switch to a 17 magazine spread. This was genius and completely aligned with the new demographic the CW was trying to connect with. Not surprising, the budget seemed to increase yet again, although, another personal opinion here, the shoots didn't feel as innovative during this era. There were still some great ones, no doubt about it.
However,
I remember even as a kid feeling very uncomfortable during some of these shoots. That crime scene one was treacherous. The model stereotypes where one girl was anorexic, another was bulimic, another was strung out on drugs. It was really bad. As the show reached its peak, there were moments that felt off. More photo shoots started crossing into uncomfortable territory. I only bring this up to let you know that more and more yellow flags were starting to pop up.
Because you message drama channels!
The quality and creativity was definitely starting to drop. Yes, this was the peak era, of course, but the fall comes right after. So when discussing the peak, it's critical to mention cracks were starting to show. Another crack to mention, outside factors that would soon start to affect the show in a negative way, began to spring up. I repeat, these factors were not hitting the show just yet. Top Model was still getting painted like a French girl, but in the ocean afar, there was in fact an iceberg just waiting to rock that shit. So I am gonna zone out and analyze that iceberg. The CW was all about that younger demographic, right? The youth, the teens, which just so happens to be the exact demographic that is the first to adopt new trends. And what was the newest, hottest trend around during the peak of America's Next Top Model? The DVR, aka the digital video recorder. This was a device that let you record live programming. You could get it all set up, you didn't have to be there, and you could watch it later with the added magic of fast forwarding through commercials. In 2008, Nielsen reported that some shows gained 25 to 35% more viewers when DVR playback was included. Now, how does this negatively affect America's Next Top Model? That is a rise in ratings. How is this a bad thing? Valid question, and I hear hear you, but remember, this was an iceberg afar. This was a gain today, suffer tomorrow situation. Initially, America's Next Top Model was seeing a spike in viewership. It looked steady, if not better, on paper. The show was still arms splayed at the bow of the boat in Leonardo DiCaprio's grasp. It was still doing good. Tyra was still doing that toe dancing shit with the poor people, having a grand old time. The party was still going. However, the device did not hurt the show by removing viewers, but it did hurt the viewing experience, an experience that Top Model depended on. I apologize for the baby in my arms. Ragnar is very, very needy. Two other contributing factors, perhaps you have heard of them, were Netflix and YouTube. Netflix launched in 2007, which was around the same time as the YouTube explosion. And just like the DVR, these were not instant punches to the gut of the show, but they certainly were a slow, creeping stomach bug. These new media options caused more than anything a psychological shift, giving viewers more options and more control over how they consumed media. Tyra and the whole ANTM crew definitely recognized this shift. They finally saw the iceberg by cycle 9, and that has led to what I have dubbed the Feed the Beast era of the show. Cycle 10 saw a significant drop in viewership, going from about 5.1 million in Cycle 9 to 4.23 million in Cycle 10. The show was still recognizable, but the drop in viewership was a pattern across cycles 10 through 16. And those numbers give us a very clear story. This is the time period where America's Next Top Model began to decline, and it never really reversed. The once stable ratings started slipping and continued to trend downward after Cycle 10. In the late 2000s, early 2010s, average viewership was drifting closer to the 3 million range and then even below. This was a steady erosion rather than some crazy collapse. You can decide if that is better or worse. Instead of doing what they had before, sticking to the recipe, just upgrading the quality of ingredients, the creative forces behind the show started freestyling, skipping entire steps and leaving out key ingredients. The show leaned into bigger concepts, stuntier photo shoots, and more exaggerated cheap drama, all in the name of keeping things fresh and interesting. We were also introduced to the first themed cycle, and this was considered the short girl cycle. All of the girls were 5'7" and under. When this aired, I was not a fan. I did not want any type of change. Maybe it was the neurodivergence, I don't know. But what I do know is that I was not the only one who wasn't feeling this cycle. This cycle saw a drop-off of about 500,000 viewers, the biggest drop-off ever in the CW era. The audience wasn't asking for a change like that. We liked the formula. God, this was nothing though. Cycle 13 was nothing. It was child's play compared to the future themed cycles. But at the time, I did not know. I didn't know what we had. And I certainly did not know what we were in for. I believe Cycle 15 was a response to the Cycle 13 drop-off because there was enough time to assess the issues and regroup at that point. I feel like Cycle 14 happened so quickly after Cycle 13, there just wasn't enough time to adjust it in any way. It was already way too cooked. The result was actually good in my opinion. Cycle 15 and Cycle 16 were more focused on high fashion. The prizes shifted to reflect this as well, with an IMG contract and a spread in Vogue Italia. It all felt very glamorous. I'm gonna stay on this positive path before I circle back and rip this era to shreds, because I'm fair, okay? I'm fair when I'm making an argument. First and foremost, Directitude. I salute you.
Drek, which means erect.
The angel, the icon, the amazing Andre Leon Talley replaced Miss J on the judging panel, but J did stay on as a runway coach. A not so great change on the judging panel was that Paulina Poroskova replaced Twiggy, something that affected my soul deeply. I just love Twiggy. Getting back to the positives, Cycle 16 was actually pretty good, although I'm not saying it's perfect. No cycle in this entire show is perfect. They all have so many issues, but I just loved that high fashion theme. It didn't feel like a gimmicky thing. It felt like a well thought out concept that made sense. The shoots were beautiful and creative. I will, however, circle back to how Cycle 16's greatness would turn out to be a double-edged sword in the next chapter. Now on to the not-so-great parts. The challenges and photo shoots leaned more towards spectacle and rage-baitiness, rather than continuing to balance that wildness with authenticity. Most of what the contestants participated in was literally just setting them up to fail, for the sake of entertainment. It's important to note here that viewers' tolerance level, perhaps? I'm having a bit of a brain fart, so I can't think of the right word. I guess the best way to explain it is that we were starting to get a much better understanding of social issues. Moving past round 2 of the race-swapping bullshit was more detrimental to the show. More young people, because again, the demographic skewed younger, were aware that culture was not a costume. It was not okay. With more understanding came more empathy. So conducting a photo shoot glamorizing homelessness with actual unhoused people in the background being used like props, the youth wasn't mistaking that for high fashion anymore. What added insult to injury was during the judging panel, before discussing each of the girls' pictures, Miss Tyra Banks showed a segment from her talk show where she was conducting a sort of experiment, cosplaying as an unhoused person. And the Tyra show is actually very relevant at this point. Tyra still had all the same duties on ANTM at the same time she was doing this talk show. She was incredibly busy. The talk show was a lot for her to tackle. She was doing much more than just showing up. The Tyra Banks show went from 2005 to 2010. Tyra was the host, the executive producer, and the creative director. This is a lot on its own. Daytime talk shows are no joke. They are extremely demanding. She was taping multiple episodes per week on top of press and development for the talk show. Bankable Productions was expanding. She had an online beauty magazine. She was an EP on another ABC reality show, True Beauty. Had a 3-book YA fantasy deal. I don't think this woman ever slept. It is fair to say that Tyra's cup doth runneth over, and it is impossible to give all of your projects 100% when you have that many going on. There was absolutely no way Top Model was getting her best effort, and I believe the show suffered because of it. She continued to feed the beast more and more and expanded like crazy. I'm gonna rattle off just a few things that Tyra/Top Model had going on outside of the flagship American show. A failed Top Model fashion doll, a Top Model video game for Nintendo DS and Wii. And worst of all, in my opinion, in 2011, America's Next Top Model launched their official fragrance, Dream Come True. Top note, Freesia and Melon. Base notes, the tears and crushed self-esteem from the contestants of yesteryear. The perfume would become prominent in the show starting in Cycle 17, I believe. It was so silly. During this Feed the Beast era, China, Mexico, New Zealand, Greece, Austria, Poland, Vietnam, and Albania all launched their own Top Model spinoffs. The franchise expanded rapidly, and it all seemed very cash grabby. This was detrimental to a show like ANTM, that captured viewers with authenticity, or at least the illusion of authenticity. What once felt like a scrappy modeling competition, built on aspiration and personality, was now a monetized franchise. As the brand grew, the show's content grew to be more and more absurd, and it became harder to maintain the illusion that viewers were watching a raw discovery process.
I'm getting
You have the power to fiercely freeze in any pose. Be afraid, because I'm going to defeat you with my smile.
America's Next Top Model was now the center of a large commercial ecosystem, with each cycle feeding into the broader top model machine. When the beast gets that big, you cannot shrink it back down. By the end of this era, Top Model could not return to the raw, authentic energy of its earlier seasons, even if it wanted to. So instead of dialing things back, the show leaned harder into spectacle. I need you to know, I am bursting at the seams, dying to talk about pot leadum. You simply could not comprehend it. I am like shaking. We're almost there. I promise to talk about how the positives of the high fashion cycles were a double-edged sword in this chapter. Basically, you give Tyra Banks an inch and she will bulldoze a mile, smizing at you from behind the wheel as she's doing it. The high fashion themed cycles were received pretty well, and because of that, just my theory, what I believe, Tyra / the creative crew behind Top Model decided to take that idea of a themed cycle and push it to the absolute limit, resulting in this horrific era of themed cycles.
And you're gonna always get it again and again and again.
Cute themes with clear concepts that were actually relevant to modeling. No. Certainly not. It gives me no pleasure to introduce to you America's Next Top Model All-Stars. Seems like a clear concept, right? The best of the best from former cycles gathered together to see who is the tippity top model. You'd think, right? That sounds good. But no. We got pot leadum. That's what we got. Pot leadum. The models had 20-ish minutes to come up with a horrible song, as if that wasn't dumb enough. Nope. That wasn't all. It wasn't dumb enough, actually. There was a big reveal. The song must include pot leadum somehow in the hook of the song. So this is Chopped. This is a viewer's choice basket on Chopped with cheese curls, lime gelatin, and reindeer balls.
Durian, lime gelatin, imitation crab meat, and crunchy cheese curls.
We got problems.
This is a train wreck. And for my Chopped girlies out there, you know that these episodes, these viewers' choice baskets, are not about making a quality meal. This was a setup for failure. This was about finding entertainment in what outrageous, horrendous shit you could put together on a plate. It has nothing to do with the chef's skills. That was an outrageous metaphor. Okay, I'm well aware. But you know what? I stand proudly by it. Cycle 17 was a viewer's choice basket on Chopped. And get into this. One of the prizes for the winner of this cycle was a record single for CBS. I'm going to say that again. A record single, as in music, as in a song. Music for who? A song for what? What did Jade say?
This is not America's Next Top Best Friend.
This is not America's Next Top Best Friend. This is not America's Next Top Pop Star. Why? Cycle 17 specifically was a special kind of hot mess, and truly my least favorite cycle. I know that sounds crazy. I know, but the reason being is the amount of potential the idea of an all-stars season had. That was all absolutely stomped on. It was ruined. Why do you insist on doing fuckery? Why do you need to do dumb shit? I could forgive all of this if the photo shoots and challenges were incredible, but no. We got the Greek salad, an event that was so horrendous it has been mentioned in this video twice now. At this point, Top Model was clinging on to their audience for dear life, hence the Claws of Life chapter title. What to say about Cycle 18? 0 for 2, folks. That's what I'll say. 0 for 2. This was a British invasion themed season. Half of the contestants already competed on Britain's Next Top Model and half were American newbies. And we got blessed with the light of Kelly Cutthroat Catrone, who replaced Andre Leontali. If you can believe it, Kelly was not a widely loved judge, especially this season. Certainly not this season.
I feel like I can't win.
I think you need to put some gratitude in your attitude. My experience with you on the set was you were very condescending and rude to me, which I don't really care about.
No. You were rude to me.
Okay, I'm done talking to you now.
Fine.
You just have a problem with authority.
I don't do well with rude people.
You are a model. This is a publicist.
I
Do you understand?
understand
There is a right. Why are you shaking your head? Please, no, get out of my way. And that Kelly Catrone, I swear to God, if she was on the street, I'd knock her out.
The photo shoots this cycle were diabolical, and I mean that. Truly the worst cycle when it comes to photo shoots. They gave us maple syrup, Hello Kitty, and the Jenner clan. That is what they fed us. No thank you. I would much rather chew my own arm off, actually. Cycle 19 just got dumber. It was another themed cycle.
Again and again and again!
This time it was America's Next Top Model College Edition, meaning all contestants were enrolled in higher education, which makes 0 sense. A quick sidebar. Yes, I am going through the cycles for this era one by one, because they are, if nothing else, individually appalling. They all require direct attention. The seriousness was gone by this point. I mean, probably well before this point, but it was like not even trying anymore. You are competing to be a model, a top model, like as a career. Why are they making a mockery of this now? I'm sorry, do none of us recall Tyra having an absolute meltdown because a girl wasn't in shambles after being eliminated? A girl who's been through far worse, screaming the worst things at this girl because her entire life does not revolve around a reality modeling competition that just made a fool of her moments prior. Nope, doesn't matter. This was all solely for the LOLs now. And like I said, they didn't even try to dress it up anymore. They weren't even pretending to take it seriously. I am really trying to stay on the rails here, but what the fuck are we doing? What is going on? I can't stop thinking about how consequential this competition seemed in the early cycles and how watered down and cheap it became by this era. The show was unrecognizable at this point. And if we are going to keep talking photo shoots, spoiler, we are. They had a sticky situations in a motel theme, and they put one of these girls in a dress that looked like it was ripped right off of Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas. That whole shoot was giving Jeffree Star, circa MySpace days, sleep paralysis demon. There was also the taxidermied mounted heads. That was very bizarre. I could go on forever. It didn't give even a thimble of anything even remotely reminiscent of fashion or luxury. You know what? I have changed my mind, actually. Cycle 19 beats 17 as the worst cycle ever in my book, and I'll tell you why. It was more than the creative direction, or the lack thereof. It also has to do with 2 critical pieces of information I forgot to mention. The first being, a huge one, the dismissal of the Jays, who were the only consistent part of the show outside of Tyra. And secondly, the introduction of public voting. I will be straight up with you. I am going to do my best when it comes to explaining that circus, and I will most likely fail to do so properly. To clarify, the show did not switch to a live situation. Everything had already been filmed, and then the photos were released online so viewers could score them, and then that would be combined with the judges' numbers, but it really didn't seem significant enough to even matter. Yeah, I still don't get it, and I just assumed it was rigged, honestly. I still feel that way. Because, surprise, new twist, as if this one wasn't confusing enough. Now, there were also comebacks. Eliminated contestants still participated in every photo shoot after they were cut. Viewers would vote on CW.com, and the winning contestant with the highest social media score after 6 weeks would be brought back, and you know what? I still don't understand this part either. All you need to know is it was stupid and dumb and made no sense and made everything confusing.
I need to exit to the left.
Moving on to Cycle 20, this was an interesting rebrand. It was dubbed ANTM 2.0, and it seemed to be a last-ditch effort to get eyeballs on the product. In my head, I see the showrunners being like, hey, we have already sold out, we have hit the low point of pot leadum, we might as well see this shit through. Let's crank up the entertainment by adding some man meat into the mix.
Who wants some man meat?
I do. I want some man meat.
Michael, the white would like your man meat. Well, then my man meat he shall have.
It felt like modeling was a complete afterthought at this point, so fuck it. Throw a bunch of hot 20-somethings together and see how it all unfolds. And at the risk of sounding like a broken record, the photo shoots were dreadful. Before I reveal a few of these to you, I want you to use your imagination. Think of the most unconscionable creative direction that could be explored. Think on that for a few seconds. Did it include Honey Boo Boo in a trailer park? What about a marriage between a man and his television? How about the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? A child bride adjacent polygamy cosplay didn't come to mind? I need to know how that conversation went down in the writer's room. The moment a polygamy-related photo shoot comes into the conversation, that's the time to hang it up. This show really did fall all the way off, and landed in Cuckooville. The prizes were now a contract with Next Model Management, a spread in Nylon Magazine, $100,000 cash, a campaign with Guess, and then in the 22nd and final cycle on the CW, the Guess campaign was replaced with Zappos. After the CW canceled America's Next Top Model, VH1 picked it back up and returned the format to all-women contestants. Oh, and guess who wasn't a part of this rebrand? The woman who was the face of the franchise since the very beginning. Tyra Banks. Yeah, Tyra Banks was not going to be involved in America's Next Top Model. She remained an executive producer, so that's kind of not true, but she would not be hosting. How did anyone think this was a good idea? And she was replaced by Rita Ora. I'll say that again, Rita Ora. Who is Rita Ora? Who is she? Someone let me know. Rita Ora fans, don't come for me. Just tell me who she is. I know of her now because I have been eyes latched open, Clockwork Orange style forced to recognize she is famous for fill in the blank because I still don't know.
Good morning, Rita Ora. We're talking about you.
This show was now Top Model in name only, repackaged with a new platform, fresh faces, and modern sponsors. The judging panel was a bright spot, though, I will say that. They had Law Roach, Ashley Graham, and Drew Elliott. But this new reworked version of the show was still confusing because they framed the revival as a homecoming of sorts, but also tried to market it as a franchise for a whole new generation, so it was confusing before it even premiered. The new prizes were a spread in Paper Magazine, a contract with Rimmel, $100,000 cash, and a talent contract with VH1. Not super fashion focused, but light years better than the later CW cycles prizes. The season 23 premiere pulled about 1.3 million viewers on VH1, and that was legit momentum given the circumstances. But the trajectory matters so much more, and by the finale, the show had dropped to under 1 million viewers. The photo shoots were all over the place, and overall it felt like a completely different show. The energy, the cinematography, the editing, people were not loving it. That first VH1 cycle was so bad, they Hail Married the following cycle and brought Tyra Banks back as the host. By that point, it was too little too late. Quality of content and actual ratings-wise, 24 premiered to approximately 856,000 viewers, and the average across the cycle was roughly 800,000. That is abysmal, and clearly the ceiling for Top Model. The VH1/Yikes years were so bizarre and put the franchise in a pickle. The reboot was supposed to signal modern values, but they didn't follow through on that promise. For example, Ashley Graham was so relevant and successful as a plus-size model. I'm sure viewers tuned in for that fresh new VH1 season with all these new values and Ashley Graham on board, expecting to see at least one plus-size contestant, but no, didn't even think of it, I guess. This era took place between the years 2016 and 2018. As we know, during this time, streaming was king. ANTM's appointment-style viewing was now completely outdated. The biggest change, however, was the modeling industry as a whole. Modeling wasn't relevant anymore, at least the type of modeling that was popular in the 2000s. The late 2010s were all about social media and influencer culture. It was the age of direct-to-audience visibility, which completely undercut the show's promise of industry access. When was the last time you saw a model on the cover of a magazine who didn't start out as a TikTok or Instagram star with a built-in following? There's not many. That doesn't mean modeling is completely obsolete. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. That is certainly not the case. It just feels like the influencer has replaced the model when it comes to dream jobs for the youth, or for adults even. And if that aspirational aspect is gone, that ruins the show's relevancy, and it also dulls the sparkle a bit. So now, America's Next Top Model has become a time capsule of sorts. The show's fall, just like its rise, did not happen overnight. It stuck around long enough to become irrelevant and uninteresting to its target audience. I don't know if anything, let alone sticking to the show's original blueprint, could have helped the show survive the outside factors that were negatively impacting it. But I know the rage baiting and gimmicks were detrimental to the Top Model brand. Top Model set us up as an audience to take the show seriously. The show gave us a seat at the table, served us wine and caviar on fine china. That was the experience for several cycles. Our expectations were set. So when we came back to the Top Model table, only to be served Lunchables and to have a whoopee cushion slid under our ass, of course we got up and left. Another brilliant metaphor. I clearly have a knack for this. I actually think that is the perfect place to wrap this up. If you have made it here to the end, thank you for watching this mammoth of a video. It truly was not supposed to be of a Scorsesean size. That was certainly not the plan when I was researching and taking notes, but here we are. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like. It does help me out. It boosts my video in the algorithm. And if you want to hear more of me yapping, feel free to subscribe. I do have a very diverse back catalog of videos. I would very much appreciate you checking those out as well. Regardless, I appreciate you, and I am now going to turn this camera off because I am losing my voice. I feel like I am speaking in an entirely different language. I can barely talk. I feel like everything is coming out mucus. Everything is coming out congestion. I feel stuffed up from the tip of my head to the tippy tip of my toes, and I'm not a fan of it. What if I just rip my tongue out of my face? They were like, we know you love to go to the beach. We put a tanning bed in the back of your Subaru. Here's a slot machine instead of backseat. Has there been a bump in my beautiful Betsy Johnson comforter the entire time? Listen, pal, you stay or you go. You wanted to come in. You broke in. No, don't argue with me. Come on. Okay. Are you stuck? Ow, you son of a... Now it's the kitten. She is 4 years old, but I still refer to her as a kitten. In or out, mama? What's it gonna be? I could never survive an actual toddler. I could never survive an actual baby. I could never survive an actual child.